Hello and welcome to this episode of Motivation and Money with me, Mark Terrell, and my co-host Fanny Snaith. How are you today, Fanny?
Excellent as ever. Thank you very much, Mark.
Good,
All
good
good.
stuff. So today we are going to talk about making time for reflection. My reason for that is that my co-host has just taken some time out to reflect in a way that maybe some of us maybe wouldn't do. And I'll let her share the way she has taken time out, which is an interesting way to do it. But I personally think it's one of those things that we need to do. We need to do it in a way that suits us, whatever that means to us, reflecting on, I think, where we've come from, where we are, where we want to go, those sort of things, where we are in our journey. And I'll share something that I've just been doing last week. I did an accreditation in a process called territory mapping,
Oh,
and the principles are that we all have our territory, and we are all hunting, growing, and protecting something. And to do that, we need continuing the sort of the sort of analogy around that. We need shields to protect things. We need spears to give to people with regards to knowledge. Anyway, I won't go on about it too much, but I think it made me really reflect on those few days I had away. Was, well, where am I? What does my territory map look like? And where am I heading? Where's my big woolly mammoth that I'm trying to hunt down? And obviously, that's a metaphorical thing, not an actual animal. Um, so there we are. It's just my little snippet on that. So we might be able to do talk more about
Hmm.
that on a different episode.
It's
Um,
interesting you should say that though, because where I've just been, hunting, would you say hunting, growing, and protecting?
yeah.
So could that be translated to a little bit in towards, away from,
Mhm.
and non-awareness?
Um,
Possibly.
yeah. You could say that, yeah. Or you could say
So
what do you want less of, more of, and stay the same.
right,
So
okay. So
yeah.
I've the what we're talking about today is me coming back from my second bout, 10-day course of Vipassana, which is a form of meditation, which is like thousands of years old, and its main three things, even though it's sort of like basically a Buddhist type of thing, so it has all those kind of leading having a lifestyle of morality. There are three sort of focuses on it, which are um, not to be free from well, to be free from misery. Um, we need to be free from aversion, free from craving, and free from ignorance.
Interesting, isn't
So isn't that interesting? So free from aversion, which is like, is your fear protection,
it?
yeah,
Yeah.
and craving is your growing, or
Hmm.
you think, craving, I want this, I want this, I'm gonna get more, I'm gonna get more, I'm gonna get
Hmm.
more.
Hmm.
And then the ignorance is not being aware of a current situation.
Hmm.
Isn't that interesting?
It is thing. I mean, there's how many? There's lots of sort of things that we talk about which come in threes, and threes are sort of magical number in many ways.
But it just seems that they're so similar.
Hmm. Yeah, there's definitely alignment there, isn't there?
I
Yeah.
mean, I still, to a certain extent, I still say that if you've read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho,
Hmm.
you've basically read pretty much all of the personal development books, because they all they all say the same thing, just in different ways, don't you think?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think what that book, if I can remember, is about is basically we're all on a journey, and no, not.
Yeah, and all
Yeah,
the
so
and
we're
all
on a
the
journey, and when we meet someone, that's maybe where we need to reassess where we are, and maybe we might go in a different direction than we intended to, and just go with the flow. Is that? right? It's been a while
I
since I
think,
read it.
yeah, it's been a while since I read it too, but I think basically what it's saying, what it ends up with, you go on a big long journey, a search of discovery to find yourself, to be this, you meet certain people along the way. It's sort of a little bit like the hero's journey to a certain extent. But at the end of the day, what you come back to is that all the answers were within yourself in the beginning.
Yeah.
You just hadn't
Yes.
found those.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we're talking about my 10 days, just to fill people in on what goes on. So I go to this centre. There are about 130 of us there, and we get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and we do a couple of hours meditation from 4:30 till 6:30. Then we have something to eat, and then we go back again at 8 o'clock, where we have to do an hour where we sit completely still, however torturous that is, with crossed legs and crossed arms, crossed hands. And getting through that, so it's feeling pain. Probably people are going, oh, why would you want to do that? I'll tell you in a minute. And because I certainly said it, I'm still not sure this is right. And then we carry on a bit longer until about 11 o'clock. We have lunch, and then we have a bit of a break, and then we go back again at 1 o'clock and meditate until 2:30. Then we have another hour where we all have to sit dead still. And then we carry on meditating again till 5, and then we have supper, which for old students who've done it before, you don't get any supper, you just get a cup of lemon water. And then you go back after that and do another sitting hour sitting dead still, and then you watch a video of teaching, and then you do a bit more meditation, and then you go to bed, rinse and repeat for 10 days. That's basically what you do. So It's about 10 hours meditation a day, which is like quite a long time, really, I guess.
That's intense, isn't it?
It is intense. It is intense. All in complete silence. So we take the vow of noble silence, and we don't have any phones. We don't have any smartwatches. Don't have any books. Don't have any pens. We don't have anything to read apart from a Vipassana pamphlet that they've given us at the beginning. So we are literally as it is, because that's
and cut
really
off from the outside world.
Cut off from the outside world, but it's also it's about just looking at things as they are. Trying to look at things as they are. But the interesting thing about Vipassana, which is different from other meditation, is because with other meditations, you tend to focus on something outside. So you might be asked to focus on the breath, which is obviously inside, but it might be counting breaths or doing something. But with other meditations, you might be chanting something, or looking at a candle, or looking at a dot on the wall, or doing something, or whatever. Whereas this one is very much all about focusing on the sensations within the body, to develop an awareness and an insight of what's actually going on within us, with the thoughts that your feelings come before any thoughts. So let's say, for instance, going back to caveman times, it's like, do you see do you see the saber-toothed tiger coming towards you? Your emotion comes, your feelings comes first before the thought to run away. You need that. So if you're actually going really right into the body to listen, to feel the sensations, which is why we spend the first 4 days, and this is really reflective, we spend the first 4 days just focusing on the breath underneath our nose, feeling that just there. And my monkey mind this time, oh my goodness, I think I swung through every jungle, every tree of every jungle, of every forest, of every copse, of every garden on the planet, because my brain was just all sorts of everywhere, which is interesting enough. Literally walking around thinking the thoughts like work, home, the height of, I remember the waistband of Simon Cowell's trousers came up in my mind. Margaret Thatcher.
It's something I do think about that a lot, actually, to be honest.
But do you know what I mean? It was like these really weird things, memories from childhood that came up in sort of different clusters, sort of things. Going, oh, isn't that interesting? I'd never thought about that with that. So all very reflective, but really I'm supposed to be concentrating on this here, and every time my mind goes off here. So it's also trying to have that control, so that the voices in your head can be a bit like a radio station in the background that you don't really listen to.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting practice. And through the pain, as the pain arises during these 3 hour sessions of different hour sessions during the day, and by jingo it does, you're trying not to have, you're treating pain and pleasure in equanimity. So with the pain, as you start to focus more on the sensations of the body, you start to experience something called free flow, which I've talked about before, which is a really lovely sense of vibration-y. I mean, it comes out different ways in different people, obviously, but I would say pretty much like a full body orgasm, to be honest. But we're not.
She said the O word. But when you get to that point, does it continue, or does it come in waves over the turn?
Well, it comes in waves. So the pain will be there. I mean, until you've got your headspace in the right way, because there were a couple of times at least where I did the whole hour and didn't move a muscle and I didn't feel anything at all. So it all happens in different ways. So, but the point is, we're not supposed to crave the free flow, and we're not supposed to have an aversion to the pain, and that will protect us from misery in the future, and also bring us out of ignorance, so that we become a lot more aware of ourselves and what's going on in the body and how that affects who we are and all that kind of stuff.
Interesting. And do you get opportunity to sort of reflect on the week, or with the participants there, what you learned? Is there a conclusion that you come to with regards to that?
You get to talk on day 10, because they sort of think, you can't wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning on the Sunday morning, and then they chuck you out into the big wide world and you haven't spoken to anybody. So yes, talking is introduced on the day before, on day 10. And obviously then you start talking to other people and going in, because you are tempted to open your eye and look around the meditation hall and go, oh my God, everybody seems like they're sitting so still and I'm the only one that's shuffling about, which of course you're not, and you hear other people's experiences and other people's reasons for going. For me, my first reason for going on the first one was to hear my heart, because I'd never heard my heart before, to actually feel my heart. And I did that, and I thought this time was going to be so much easier, and it wasn't. But there was probably a lot more reflection for me.
So that's interesting. So when you say you felt your heart, is that different to when you feel your heart when you've been doing, maybe like when I feel my heart, it's when I've done a HIIT session, high intensity training session. I feel my heart then because it's pounding outside my chest half the time. But are we talking about that or something completely different?
Yeah, no, I am talking about that. And with any exercise that I've ever done I've been a big exerciser, I've never felt my heart like that. No. I can feel my pulse here, but to actually connect it with this thing that's beating in my chest, no.
But I suppose when we haven't got any of those external stimuli, like a TV, phone, even a book, you have to there's only yourself to concentrate on. There isn't nothing else apart from the walls around you to, I suppose, to look at other people. You've got to keep your eyes shut, have you? Is that part of it, or is that?
You have to keep your eyes shut.
Yeah.
You're not allowed, in the hour. You're not allowed to open your eyes. During the other times, you can shuffle about a little bit if you want to. But so one of the things I found interesting, which one of my reflections on, is that in NLP, I don't know if you know much about NLP, but they talk about rep systems. So by looking at people and listening to people, listening to their predicates and looking at the way that they use their eyes and their faces, etc., you can get an idea as to what type of rep system they've got. So whether they're kinesthetic, whether they're visual, whether they're auditory, or or whatever. And there's another one called auditory digital, where it's basically where you sort of you're the type that you figure out a lot of stuff in the head, and you can be sort of pretty dead below the neck down with a lot of things. Whereas a kinesthetic person will, they'll drink a cup of coffee and they'll be bouncing off the walls, or, they feel things a lot more.
Yep.
And I'm mainly auditory digital, and like my friend is very kinesthetic. And so I was thinking in the room, it's like, gosh, this is really going to differ depending on the kind of person that they are, because so a kinesthetic person is literally probably going to feel a lot more So it was quite, it's very interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
And it does get you to reflect. I mean, there were times when I was thinking, do I really need to take 10 days out of my life to do this? That was one. And then there were things like this, this practice is rubbish. And going through all that and just thinking, I can't, this isn't working. Well, why do I have to sit here and go through this pain to find out what's going on? But it is interesting that when you break through this threshold, things do happen. It's very odd.
Well, I suppose it's allowing those things to happen, isn't it? You've obviously gone somewhere to allow those things to happen, but we don't have to do what you've done. But I think on a day-to-day basis, or on a week-by-week, month-by-week, it's having a reflection practice is a good idea. And you can reflect on something that's happened at the end of the day. You can reflect on your week, reflect on your month. Absolutely. Those are the typical times when people do it, isn't it? And then and I think it's difficult not to be judgmental with reflection, in that if you haven't achieved what you wanted to, then one of the things that I've sort of learned is that just because I haven't reached those targets, whatever those targets might be, I don't beat myself up now. I just think, well, I've made some progress. I just haven't made quite as much progress as I had set out to do.
Yeah. And this is another thing, isn't it? Upon reflection, what's the difference between craving and a goal? So is a goal something that you crave for? I think it's the energy behind it as well. And so that if you can be accepting and have compassion and love for yourself over these things, which is what you're describing, then obviously there's not going to be much help. It's not going to be a very healthy approach if you keep striving for something and maybe don't reach it and then knock yourself down a little bit. That's interesting. But one thing I will say, as far as reflection is concerned, I mean, obviously there are so many different ways of reflection: going out for a walk, journaling, painting, drawing a picture, doodling, playing some inane game on your phone that you don't have to think about. But one thing that I will say is, I would love everybody in the world to do as the norm is to meditate, is to take time to quieten the mind and be able to try and focus it, because I haven't met anybody that has said that meditation isn't good for you.
No, exactly. But the thing is, it's difficult, isn't it? It's easy to give up on, and it's one of those things that you've got to be consistent at. You've got to stick at it, and not again when you're not able to do it as long as you want to.
I actually don't know if I agree with that, because the thing is, I think it's difficult depending on your expectations.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, after 4 days of sitting there with not talking, not looking at anyone, just focusing on here. Most of the people that I spoke to were just about able to manage a full minute
before being distracted in their thoughts. Yeah.
So what do we say? Is that I'd say that's pretty good. But many people might go, oh, well, I can't even do it. But what are your expectations over meditation? I think the point of just actually sitting quietly to reflect on something, or to not reflect on something, is you're onto a winner, whatever happens, because whether you do it 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, I mean, according to Vipassana, we're supposed to do it an hour twice a day. I do it once a day, but it's I know that progress comes just like going out and starting to run. So it's
because nobody runs a marathon first time out. They do a 5K, 10K, half marathon. It's just the way we learn and how we get more proficient at things.
So let's think about this then. What sort of things, because I think this is really important as well. Choosing what we reflect upon. And my thoughts at the moment, or my experiences have been since I've been training to become a therapist and also doing the Vipassana, that focusing on the control we have over ourselves rather than how external factors affect us is really important. So learning more, know thyself,
Yeah.
being responsible for our actions
Yeah, for sure.
and reactions.
Yeah, so it's been in control of this, isn't it? And not allowing I think you mentioned it in our sort of pre-chat about the monkey mind sort of taking over. It's making sure that we're making decisions based on the place, the sensible place to take action, rather than the fight and flight sort of reactional thing that we can, we can let that take over, and if we let that take over, then we start making bad choices and things. So
Yeah.
being aware of that is important, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is interesting in the fact that I'm doing some training to become a mentor at the moment, and I was watching videos last night about it's all subjects like how to cope with somebody who's got suicide feelings, and then we were talking about ACEs, adverse childhood experience events, and how such a huge number of people have got 4 ACEs, or at least 1 ACE or whatever, which is a list of 10 things that if these things happened around to you or around you as a child, the chances are it's going to have an adverse effect as you grow up. And one of the things they were talking about was that when we're children, if we're feeling in a place of constant, where we're not feeling safe, our body is almost constantly in the fight, flight, or freeze mode.
Mm-hmm.
And actually that does physical damage to us when we're children. And on average, the people who have a high number of ACEs, and I can't remember exactly the figure now, have a 20-year less life expectancy.
Wow.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
I mean, and it doesn't have to be that way. So therefore, if so many of us have had adverse childhood experiences or events, it's really important for us to be able to work with those so that we can calm the body and calm the mind, so that we're not running in stress and looking at everything around us and getting triggered by external things, which of course you're going to be if you're in that state a lot.
That's
so
for sure. Yeah.
That's why reflection, I think, is so important.
Yeah, and I think we haven't covered either of our sort of topics, being motivation and money, but I was just going to ask you, with regards to, does this have any relevance to the work you do with money? Do you think?
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. It does totally, because let's say, for instance, if I'm working with somebody, and let's say their victim money type is out to play. So it's like everything's going wrong. I've been trying to do this, but that goes wrong because, well, this person did this, which meant that plan went to pot. Blah 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 blah. And all this sort of like chatter, problem, can't. It's all happening. Blah, blah, blah. My first reaction will be, to help them, is to say, let's just stop for a moment and let's try and take the helicopter view of this, or the giraffe view rather than the jackal. The jackal. That's used in oh my goodness, it's we call it the healthy communication framework, but it's called non-violent communication.
Oh, NVC, yeah.
So the giraffe rather than the jackal. And to actually just see what's going on here. And that's the first thing. If we go back to the Vipassana stuff, that's then coming out of ignorance. And then you can look at, if you come out of ignorance, you can then go, so what are you craving and what are you trying to push away? So how can you then look at all of those things with a balanced mind, or an equanimous mind, as the Mr. Goenka says, who's the leader of the course, and actually try to get some balance. And if you start to get some balance and some sense and some compassion and some open to flow and some detachment, you're then showing the signs of magician, which is where we all want to be.
Yeah.
So it's all very, very much linked. And I'm sure that if we were talking about your motivational maps, you'd say a similar type of thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've talked about it. I've had instances where, I was working with a client and something comes up from their past, which was they've identified that from their motivational map. And, I can't see it, but that's the power of it. You understand, well, I know why that is because of this. And it might be back, like you say, back when they were very, very young.
Didn't I? I had one on mine. Do you remember? So my star was bottom.
Yeah.
And you said, I was surprised because your star's at the bottom, whereas I thought it would be a lot higher. And I said, aha, that's because the thing that I try not to hang on to, but subconsciously I obviously am still, is the part where mum said, sit down, shut up and stop showing off.
Yeah, that children have been seen, not heard, and all that sort of stuff that was.
Or just don't put your head above the parapet,
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff. So but you can look at that and you can go, well, that's actually complete rubbish. I know it's rubbish, but there's obviously something subconscious when I was answering those questions that still comes up.
But what you've identified there, and what's identified quite often with the motivational stuff, is that when it's very low, it's something that we are suppressing. We're actively pushing it down. We're almost like, I don't want that. It's bad. It's negative.
There you go.
And there's no bad motivator. It's just how we perceive it and how we're moving away towards or away from it.
Isn't that mad, right? Isn't that mad? I mean, that's so true. How that shone through.
Yeah.
But essentially, reflection is all about looking at what they call our internal locus of control rather than the external locus of control, knowing that ultimately we are responsible for our own behavior, what we do, how we think and how we feel. And if we're saying that person made me do this, watching that made me think this, that's relying on external stuff that's creating our own internal actions. And I think we would all agree that when we can start reflecting and getting to know ourselves and taking our own responsibility on being aware of those things, then we're going to become different human beings.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'd add to that with the work I do, there needs to be a bit of time to reflect on what the motivational map is telling them. Because I think we can jump to conclusions as to, that's that, this, that, and the other. But actually, when you start thinking about things in a bit more of a relaxed state, and that's when you come into using meditation, you've got to tackle these things from a relaxed state as opposed to a state where you might be hyper, very happy or very sad, very sort of, you need to be calm. And that's where meditation obviously has a major influence on the way you feel. And I talk a lot about it's all about the way you feel. It's the way you want to feel about things. Sometimes the way you want to feel about something isn't serving you. So you need to, and that's why NLP is useful, because you can change your attitudes to things, and because those things are highlighted. So anyway, sadly, our 30 minutes is almost up again.
Well, that went fast.
Yes, it's surprising how it flies by. So thank you for sharing so openly what you've just been doing, Fanny. I think it's fascinating. And if you want to know more about that, then I'm sure Fanny, if you want to reach out to Fanny, then and she'll tell you about what that's about and how you might want to get involved, do it yourself or whatever. And so that's about it for now. I think we'll just wrap it up there, and we will see you next time. And until then, have a great time. Keep reflecting.
Keep reflecting.
Make time to reflect. And we will see you very soon.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care. Thanks.